Welcome everyone, if you can hear me, we are back in business. It is the Spanish Grand Prix, the third race of the triple header, and I'm back. I was here a couple of weeks ago for the Imola Grand Prix. Last weekend I was in Dallas, Texas, while Monaco was going on, which was, you can still see the bags under my eyes of that weekend. And this weekend is the Spanish Grand Prix, and not gonna lie, we have a serious weekend on our hands, I think, today. I don't know what's gonna happen. The McLarens are on the front row together. That does not necessarily mean that they're going to win the Grand Prix. But yeah, welcome everyone. We've got lots to talk about in this hour before the race officially starts, because we've got Lance Stroll not lining up on the grid today in a very interesting turn of events. We've got Yuki Tsunoda starting from the pit lane because Red Bull seemingly are using him as a test dummy. But yes, welcome back everyone. And it's going to be a good race. You guys know my thoughts on Barcelona. I'm a little bit under the weather, as you can tell. Like, my throat's a little bit something, but whatever. Bear with me today. Have you always done pre-shows, JW? I've started... When did I start? Bahrain? Saudi? Something like that? I try and do them for the Grand Prix when I can. And the next Grand Prix in Montreal, just for those of you joining us nice and early today, I should be there in Montreal. The plan is that I'm going to be at the race. And hopefully I can do a pre-show from somewhere around the race. That's the plan. So yeah, we've worked on that for a little bit. So I should be in Montreal for the race with any luck. I booked my flight. I just need to figure out a few details. Anyway, welcome all, welcome all. This is what Max Verstappen says about turn one. We'll get into that in a second. But look, no time to waste. We are going to talk about the drama of yesterday and today. And I wanted to begin really with the big story, and that is Lance Stroll. Let's go small cam. There we go. So, Lance Stroll is out of the race already before the race has even started. Aston Martin yesterday say over the course of the past 6 weeks, excuse the voice, Lance has been experiencing pain with his hand and wrist, which his medical consultant believes is in relation to the procedure he underwent in 2023. You guys probably remember at the start of the 2023 season, he crashed, he fell off his bike or whatever. Was it like he crashed his bike or something? Going skiing, I don't know what it was. He broke his wrist, he had it, soldered back together, and then a week later he was back in the car in Bahrain and scored, did he score points? Anyway, a good start to the season anyway. And very commendable, Alonso gave him lots of credit at the time, but there is an argument to say that maybe he jumped back in the car too quickly. I don't know. Rumour has it that for the last 6 weeks he has been struggling with his wrist again. And as a result, his medical team have confirmed that he will not race tomorrow and will undergo a procedure to rectify these issues, because apparently after qualifying yesterday, it was really bad. Like, that's the talking point, because otherwise, how has it even been allowed to get to this point, I guess, is the comment, right? Yeah, people are saying you can't sub in Felipe. Well, no, because he's not raced in a session. He's not qualified. I think because he didn't qualify, he can't race. I know that people would say, for example, like Hirakawa did the session earlier in the weekends in practice. So maybe you could say, well, he raced a competitive session, they could put him in the car. But I don't really think it works like that. Yeah, biking screwed together, I think. I'm not exactly sure what that is. But yeah, so this is what's happening with Lance anyway. And then, but Karun says, which I think is a fair assessment, to say it's a little confusing. If this issue has been happening for 6 weeks plus and there was doubt about whether Lance would be able to race, then maybe they should have just put him in the car Saturday. You've got to wonder how bad this was, though, for some time, because if you're talking 6 weeks, like, that's a ton of points that Stroll has scored being half injured, which is kind of commendable, but also, I don't know, it's concerning, right? I know that these Formula 1 guys have the absolute best medical care in the world, but still, you know, I know that some people are going to be wondering if it could be career-ending if it's not easily resolved, especially because it's not like Stroll is rapid in the first place. It's not like a Kubica situation where he was amazing, and then even after the crash and the injuries, he was still very good. Kind of same with Massa in a way. Look, I don't know. It's tough for Stroll, isn't it? I know that. Yeah, I know that there's going to be lots of fans who are saying, "Oh, Stroll, you know what? I think it's time you take some rest. I think it's time you leave Formula One and go and do something else." That's what some of the fans will say who wants to see somebody else in that car. To be fair, as do I. I mean, like, I think Stroll gets a little bit underrated sometimes, maybe that's a little bit far. But people think Stroll is like a complete donkey, and he's not far off. But like he's not a Latifi, right? Like he's not that bad. He's been at least respectable. So I think sometimes people go a bit too far on him. But equally, do I want to see him in the sport? Like, does he deserve like 8 years in F1? Let's be real, no. So it is what it is. But that's what people are talking about anyway. So Lance Stroll's out of the race and they can't replace him as it stands. They have no option to put anyone else in the car. Now, Canada in 2 weekends' time is interesting because it coincides with Le Mans, and therefore there's talk about whether, you know, they will even be able to get Drugovich. But look, Drugovich is going to give up Le Mans to go and race in F1 because that's where he wants to be. And if he gets the chance to do so, then, you know, there it is. I think as well, they will have to be careful. Apparently, the surgery that he's having apparently is tomorrow, which is interesting because you might have thought they'd have rushed him in today, but he's having it done tomorrow. So it gives him 2 weeks of recovery. And I just think that after what happened last time, they will be very nervous about putting Stroll back in the car quickly, right? Like, I think he will come back, but I think they'll be nervous about sending him straight back into the car because if it goes wrong again, then all of a sudden you're back to square one or square zero. It could be even worse. Yeah, Max, I don't think you're wrong. Lance is perfect for WEC. I don't disagree. Just swap around Drugovich and, look, I don't also think Drugovich is the perfect guy either. But people are saying, well, just send Lance to WEC, have him drive the Valkyrie, whatever it is, and have Drugovich go into the F1 car for now and put somebody else in next year. Don't know. Give the seat to Max. We'll see about that. Stroll hate isn't forced. He just makes really dumb decisions and dumb mistakes pretty frequently. Yeah, I agree. I do agree. He does make a lot of mistakes, but he's not quite Latifi level. And he did an overtake at Monaco, which was pretty commendable. We've got 550 people in here already. I'd appreciate a like on the stream if you guys are enjoying it so far. We've got 55 minutes until the start of the Grand Prix. That's the Stroll situation as it currently stands. I also want to talk about the flexi wings because this has been the other point. This is Red Bull's new wing at the front. And as you can tell, it still flexes, right? Like, it doesn't flex as much as it did for any of the teams, but it still flexes, right? Like, okay. The point is, you can't stop the wings flexing. It is what it is. They cannot be totally brittle because otherwise they would just snap. So they have to bend. It's a matter of how much they can bend. But the big drama yesterday and this whole weekend, of course, was coming into this whole weekend. The big point was, what are we going to see at the front of the field? Are McLaren going to be washed up? Like, is the flexi wing going to ruin them? Is it going to ruin Mercedes? Not going to lie, I think we'll see more evidence of that in the race than we will in qualifying because sometimes in quali, when the tyres are sticky and you're on a fresh set of softs, it can cover up some of the limitations of the car. But in race, I think we're going to see whether, because at the end of the day, the point of doing these changes is questionable in the first place because the way that Hamilton sees it, right? So this is the way that Hamilton describes it. Let me just explain it from kind of his perspective. He thinks it's a complete waste of time because these cars fundamentally, in this era of regulations, struggle because they're so heavy in the low speeds. At low speed, they don't generate much downforce. They understeer like hell into corners. At high speeds, they have a tendency to oversteer because they have so much front ends because the floor generates so much downforce at high speeds that the tendency is for the rear of the car to step out. So the flexi wings resolves both of those issues by taking away some front end at high speeds and giving you more front end at low speeds. So in many respects, the teams might argue that actually the flexi wings are a solution to the problems of this era of regulations. That's effectively what Hamilton describes. But the regulators said, no, we are going to keep things within the boundaries and we're going to tighten up the rules to make sure that everyone is doing things in the spirit of the regulations. And has it really changed anything? I mean, I guess we'll see today. I think we'll see a bit today because the point is that it should mean that you have to make more of a compromise with your car setup. And I think that we may see more evidence of that during a race distance than during a qualifying run. But time will tell. I think it's going to take a few rounds to really get the full picture of what this change has made, if any, to the competitive order. But Hamilton says it was a total waste of money. It literally has changed nothing. Everyone's bent wings still bend. It's just half the bending. Everyone had to make new wings, spent loads of money. We should be giving that money to charity. So, I thought it was an interesting take from Hamilton, really, because Ferrari were one of the teams that I think were hoping that they could benefit from this, because they've brought a whole new wing. It's not just the same wing, but less flexy, less bendy. It is actually a new wing. So they've put the money in to try and saying, okay, the new wing is going to mean this, and therefore we're going to change X, Y, Z. I don't know. But Hamilton says that it was pointless. We shouldn't have even bothered to just left it how it was. Now, look, it was a big talking point, and maybe it still will be relevant, but at the end of the day, the weekend's come around and McLaren are still 1-2, right? So it's not changed a lot. It's not like it's meant to change a lot. Like, the FIA aren't meant to change the rules to affect one team. And if anything, the team that should be affected the most might be Mercedes, because they seem to be quite reliant on the that part of things, the flexible wings, the aero elasticity that Mercedes have been rocking with for some time. So this is what Hamilton says. Obviously, Russell gave a similar perspective and said it's clearly slowed McLaren down a lot because, well, as we know, they're 1-2 on the weekend and still looking rather good. So, yeah, then why race? Just give it all to charity, crying as usual, says Testacat. I mean, look, I see what you're saying. At the end of the day, the money's spent for a good reason, but I think you can argue that the FIA, either they should have stepped in the off-season and said, okay, these are going to be the regulations for the new year, or they shouldn't have done it at all. Like, as I say, I'm not going to complain about the talking points that this has provided, but at the end of the day, I think the regulators should either have said, okay, the flexi wings are what they are, go wild for the whole season, or they're not allowed. But changing their mind in like December and then saying, okay, we're going to bring in this new TD for Spain was, if I was a team, I'd be pretty unhappy about it. So that's just my opinion. Treat your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk quali though, because yesterday Yuki was P20, and well, what is your opinion on this? So Yuki has had a very difficult time. I mean, look, it's been a little bit better than some. I still think he's been better than Lawson, but it's not been great, has it? Pippo Max, thanks for the 99 cents. Appreciate you. Drop a little like on that one. Look how beautiful it shows up in the YouTube chat. Nice and blue. So that's like an Alpine blue, although they've been absolutely getting slabbed as of late. We'll get into that in a second. So, like, Yuki at the back of the grid. Max talks about it and says he's not a pancake. Like, this has been going on for a long time. Maybe it's a sign. And look, Alex Albon, the way that I like to talk about it is the way that Alex Albon described it, is that Max drives his car on 14 sensitivity, right? Like, he drives a car that's very difficult to drive, and there's really no other driver that can handle it. The issue is, even if, because, Yuki has occasionally been within a 10th in certain sessions, and I think that, Yuki has the potential to be within a couple of tenths of Max. The difficulty is that you have a moment like Imola, and this happens to all the Red Bull drivers at some point. They have a crash, they have a spin, they lose the car because it's tricky. It's difficult for anyone to balance on a knife edge that isn't Verstappen, it seems. And, it's not Verstappen's fault precisely, but it is an issue for Red Bull, because understandably they have developed in Max's preference for years in the same way that teams do. I mean, like with Hamilton, obviously Mercedes would listen to what Hamilton wanted from the car as well, and they would look to move in that direction too. But at the end of the day, Red Bull literally said that what Perez was saying about the car over the last couple of years, they would just disregard, because they just thought, well, Perez is just terrible. We'll just listen to what Max says. And that can work, and maybe it helps Max to a point. But the problem is that it just leaves your second driver out to dry so much that if Max leaves, they're just totally chalk, because they've built a car that only Max can drive. And maybe that's the fastest way to make a car, but also, like, good luck ever winning the Constructors again when you have a car that, is nowhere near as good as it could be for a second driver. And Yuki's a solid driver, right? I don't think Yuki's spectacular, but I think he's solid. Like, he's a respectable driver. And as Max says, he's not a pancake. Now, I think this is a translation from the Dutch. I think it's a common word that kind of, means like, idiot or whatever. And obviously Yuki's respectable. And one way to read this comment from Max is that Max is saying, well, I'm literally the greatest to ever do it. So that's what this is showing. But that's not what Max is saying here. Like, Max isn't using this as an ego boost. Max is saying, like, look, this is a serious Red Bull issue that we have to figure out, because for Max as well. Like, he would love a world where he actually has a teammate to help him. Thanks, Pippo Bax again for the 2 and Adsmotic for the 3 Aussie dollars. Thanks for the content from Australia. Appreciate you. What time is it in Australia? It must be pretty late evening. Or maybe it's even worse than that. I'm not sure. This time of year, the time zones get kind of funky because of all the daylight savings and stuff. But appreciate all you guys. But I think that's the thing. Like, again, every weekend, Max is up there at the front and he's battling 2 McLarens or he's battling 2 Ferraris or whatever the weekend is, right? So Max has to just run it solo. And I also think for Yuki, it's difficult because they're kind of using him as a test dummy. I mean, they literally said it, and I've got the tweet right about here, that they were running, here we go. So this is the rear wings, this is Yuki's rear wing at the bottom here, this is Max's at the top, and you guys can see that the spoon on Yuki's quali rear wing is significantly greater, like there's a much greater angle there than Max's one at the top here, and they literally said that they loaded up Yuki with way more downforce because they thought that it might work in qualifying. And this is twofold, right? One of the elements of this is that Yuki, they feel, and maybe he feels, that he would have more confidence in the car if he has more downforce, right? More grip, less instability at the rear. That maybe could help Yuki and other Red Bull drivers get to grips with the car a bit better. They've tried to do this, but the issue is it just makes it slower. And that's like the main issue, because Yuki said he put in a pretty good lap, but he just lost loads of time on the straight. And this is what they ran on Yuki's car. The reason why they're now starting today from the pit lane is because they're changing it back. And even Pierre Wache said it. I'll try and find that comment if I have it somewhere. Yeah, here we go. Pierre Wache says, to be honest, we tried something different, trying a bigger rear wing to see if that would give us performance. It was a mistake on our part. So Red Bull basically admitting, look, I'm not going to say that it's not Yuki's fault, because I think on some level Yuki needs to do better. But at the same time, it's like, also thanks Pippomax for the additional 2. You are killing it right now. And the blue is still lovely. But the point is that Red Bull are now saying, yeah, it's kind of our fault here because we're just trying things on Yuki's car. Whether they're trying things with the intention to help out Max in some regard, I don't know. Like, because if I'm Red Bull, you know that the Constructors is chalked. Like, you know winning the Constructors. So what's the point of Yuki? Obviously, you want Yuki to do better because then he can help Max. But if he's not going to be able to be in position to help Max in the race, then maybe you just use him as a guinea pig all year and try different setup ideas to see if you can find something which is going to help the car, which kind of seems to be what Red Bull are currently doing, because, you know, you then get to see, shortly after this, that Yuki is starting from the pit lane this weekend. So they have actually thrown on Verstappen's wing, and they're going to start Yuki from the pit lane, changing under Parc Ferme. And he's going to start from last, but, well, actually 19th, I guess, right? Because Stroll is not even going to be there. So that's the situation at Red Bull. It's like all their eggs are now in the Verstappen basket. But I think the interesting thing for Red Bull is that they also want to be able to conclude as to whether Yuki could be the right man for the future for them. I mean, there was lots of talk about how, okay, Yuki has better technical feedback than some of the previous guys they've had in recent couple of years, certainly than Lawson, arguably than Perez. So maybe Yuki could be the man to help them. And Helmut Marko said when Yuki came in that he's definitely going to get the drive until the end of the year. But the last couple of weekends have been challenging. It seems like his confidence has been shaken to some degree by the Imola crash, which is frankly no real surprise. So who do you put in the car next, right? Are you going to make another change? Are you going to throw somebody else in the car instead? Is Yuki going to be out of the team next season? You know, it's interesting because you don't just want to use Yuki as a total guinea pig for Max, because if you do, then you don't really get to understand, in my opinion, whether Yuki's actually going to be a valuable driver for you or not, right? Because let's also not forget, and I've got this tweet as well, because, you know, we'll try and be well prepared. This is Arvid Lindblad, and we're talking about this fella for some time. He was pole this weekend and converted that pole today into a race win in the Barcelona feature race. Was pretty comfortable, led from the front the entire way. And it was a very mature performance from a 17-year-old who is now third in the championship. Look, I was saying to you guys long before this guy started winning races in F2 that he was going to be on the grid next year, and there's absolutely no doubt about that now in my mind. So Lindblad will be a Formula 1 driver next year for Racing Bulls. I'm 98% sure that's going to be happening, which means what do you do if you're Red Bull Racing, right? Because Isaac Hadjar has been sensational. So what do? Do you throw Hadjar in the Red Bull? I mean, like, are they not going to learn their lesson, right? I think maybe that's the conclusion here. I think that's probably what Max is trying to say as well. It's like, you're really going to throw another guy into the gauntlet? I'm not sure that's necessarily the best idea. I think we're just about 1,000 people in there as well, so appreciate you all joining me. We have 43 minutes to go until lights out for the Spanish Grand Prix. Hit the like button if you're enjoying the show so far and you're excited for the race, all that good stuff. You guys know how it is. The likes do help the stream as well. It like boosts it to more people, you know. As a YouTuber, whenever I watch a YouTube video, I hit the like button immediately. I'm sure that lots of YouTubers are the same. It's like just how it is. I'm not saying you have to do that though. Appreciate you watching regardless. Alonso next drive for a Red Bull. I will drive for Red Bull. I mean, look, I could also drive the Red Bull and be P20 every race, you know. Like, I've got no issue doing that, as long as you pay me appropriately. So, we'll see. But yeah, Lindblad's going to be in the car. I'm sure of it. That means that Lawson and Tsunoda are probably the two men at risk, as Hadjar's certainly not going anywhere. I think Hadjar's... You know what? I'll give you guys a quick poll real quick, actually. Rookie of the Year. Antonelli, Hadjar... I mean, who else do I put in? You know what? I'll give you the actual good options. Bortoleto. This is Rookie of the Year prediction for the end of the season rather than Rookie of the Year right now. You know what? Answer it how you want. Answer it how you want. Whether you want to say Rookie of the Year right now, Rookie of the Year at the end of the year, I don't know. You know, I think the answer right now is Isaac Hadjar. I think by the end of the season, the answer might be Antonelli. But I mean, look, I see you guys putting the votes in already, and like you guys are voting currently about 80% to Hadjar, 70%, something like that, which is, to be honest, higher than I expected. Yeah, to be fair, I would not fit in the car. That's absolutely right. I would not fit in the car, especially not Yuki's car. Pivot back to the other two. No Stroll equals no safety car equals boring race. Not necessarily, you know. Maybe a bit of a turn one drama. Max and Lando and Oscar getting into it. Yeah, we got like 300 votes here so far. I'll show you guys what that's going to look like in a second. Yeah, we got the Alonso Classic Rookie of the Year debate as always. To be fair, he did a great lap yesterday in Barcelona. Where is Lawson on the poll? Unfortunately, there's only 4 options on the YouTube poll, so that's all I can say. Right now, it's Hadjar though. Like compared to expectations, like. I don't know. I'm just amazed that Hadjar is this good, to be honest. Like, yeah, I don't know. I watched a lot of the drivers in the rookie formulas in the last couple of years. I would not have expected Hadjar to be this good. And I think it's actually very telling and exciting for F1 because, look, some drivers, you put them in and they don't really deliver. Like, Colapinto did well in the Williams at the start of last year. This year so far, having replaced Doohan, he's been like the worst driver. Certainly down there. Like, Colapinto's been bad, and actually to such a degree... And he's only had a couple of races, so we'll give him a bit of time. But he's obviously been slow. Yesterday was unfortunate because he was doing quite well in Q1 and then had the engine issue or whatever happened to his Renault. Maybe not a massive surprise. But yeah, rumour has it that Colapinto is still at risk of potentially even getting replaced mid-season at Alpine. So yeah, there's some problems over there for him. But like compared to Lawson, for example, like Lawson... Again, watching him in F2 and stuff, I thought he was fine, but I didn't think he was. I don't know. I didn't expect Lawson to be anything special personally, but that was also my opinion of Hadjar, to be honest. And I think even that was maybe the opinion of Red Bull, to be honest. Like Red Bull have talked about it a lot, and Horner has said it, and Marco has said it, that Hadjar has just far exceeded their expectations of him because he's quick, he's consistent. And I was a bit worried for him after the first weekend in Australia where he was in the wall on the formation lap. But since then he's been, I don't know what Anthony Hamilton said to him in his ear. Maybe that was the key. But yeah, super impressive Hadjar. And I think right now, definitely Rookie of the Year. Just because he keeps doing it weekend in, weekend out. I think after Miami, I'd have probably said that after Antonelli's sprint pole, he was right there. And I don't know. I do think that there will be weekends from now to the end of the year. Thanks, Pippo Max, for the other additional 2 US, by the way. I'm Italian, I'm saying Antonelli. I think that by the end of the season, the answer could be Antonelli. I think it's possible. You know, if he puts together a strong run towards the middle end of the season, I think it's definitely doable that Antonelli could be Rookie of the Year. But it is going to be tough to be Hadjar right now. Like, I rate Behrman as well. I rate Bortoleto as well. But, you know, they've done excellent jobs, I think, Behrman and Bortoleto against their teammates. But, you know, they don't maybe have the machinery to show it. And Hadjar's just just been outperforming really impressively. Giggs is scribbed with a 5. Is Stroll's surgery an indicator of an open Aston seat next year? Max ... Yeah, I did mention this a few minutes ago. I don't think it's an impossibility that Max might have, one thought about this. The issue for Max is, I will say, is that Adrian Newey the other day did an interview for the first time, pretty much, with Aston Martin and said that their simulators don't work. Fundamentally, that's what he said. He said that there's a sizable issue with, and the race did a video on it, I talked about it in my video as well at the time, that they have an issue with their driver simulator tools, such that their wind tunnel is state-of-the-art, spectacular, but the software that they have on their simulators to replicate reality isn't really working right now. And Newey says that's a 2-year project to fix. So I'm not going to lie, as good as Newey is, and the fact that they could still create a very competitive car, I don't know. Newey's basically publicly said that it's not perfect by any means over there at Aston right now. So if I'm Max, I'm at least listening to that. Like, I think if I'm Max and I've heard that from Newey, to be honest, I'm at least giving it a year. I'm not joining in 26. I'm at least waiting a year. Like, maybe 27, but I don't think I would join in 26 having heard that, because you want to see where they are at the start of the regs. And if they have a fundamental issue, which is compromising even the genius of Newey, then, it might be cooked. Pippo with another 2. You've been killing it today. Appreciate you. Newey straight up cooked their infrastructure. I mean, I will say their factory is spectacular. Like, when I was in Silverstone at the museum the other week, it's a spectacle for sure. And I think I did mention this in a video that I was at the Hilton Garden Inn opposite the track, and Newey was having breakfast there, but I didn't see him, but apparently he was. He was in like the little private bit. Kind of fuming about that. But anyway, I walked past him not knowing it. So that's the talking point anyway. Stroll could retire for the rest of the season and would still outscore Alonso. I feel bad for Alonso because he's literally outqualified Stroll 9-0, and yet he scored no points. But look, it's not like Alonso didn't make some mistakes. To be fair, in Australia, his crash, I think, was caused by, wasn't it, Gasly went over the gravel and put some gravel on the track, so maybe that wasn't fully his fault. Monaco, he was on to score good points and his car exploded. So it is what it is. Tough season so far for Alonso. But yeah, we have 35 minutes to go until the Grand Prix. Let's talk about what's going to happen. This was qualifying yesterday. Oscar Piastri stuck it on pole. This was the biggest margin for pole of the entire season so far, with 0.2 of a second, which is kind of wild, I'm not going to lie. That we have 0.2 was the difference maker. And that's the biggest margin since Abu Dhabi last year, I think. But Lando put in a solid lap. Of course, the big talking point really was the first run of Q3, when Lando caught a little cheeky slipstream behind Oscar, and Oscar wasn't, too happy about that. Norris then went purple sector 1, then put in a pretty decent lap to be 200ths up on Piastri, but on the second run, Piastri was just faster. Purple, purple, purple. Lando, solid lap, but he lost a 10th or so, 10th and a half in turn 5. He lost a bit of time in turn 1, and at the end of the day, that was the difference maker, right? So, damn, Pippo Max is going off on the main stage. So, yeah, Lando, but still, at the end of the day, for Lando, he's great around this track. He has the track record here. I think he said it last year, 1:11.3. Maybe that was not the all-time track record, but it's certainly up there. I think maybe it is. And he set that last year. This year wasn't quite as fast because the temperatures, the conditions weren't quite as optimal. But Lando will still take a P2, and I think that's the point really for Lando, is that as long as he doesn't have blow-up qualifying, it's like the results that benefits, this is misinformation, I don't know. I think these numbers are right, aren't they? Unless I'm tripping. Anyway, let me know what's wrong about these. Point I wanted to make is that Piastri never has a bad qualifying session. Not this year. Last year he did. But last year, he had the occasional Baku, and it was Lando in Baku. But there was a couple of races last year where Oscar was like nowhere in qualifying. This year, Oscar is always there. He's bare minimum 4th or 3rd, right? Like, Oscar will always qualify in the top 3, the top 4 every time. And he always puts him in the position for the race. Lando, as we saw in Saudi, and as we've seen on occasion, has the tendency to make a mistake and go out. We know that Lando's fast. Piastri's also very fast as well. My opinion is that over a single lap, like, just pure potential performance or whatever, I still think Lando's got a slight measure on him, but Piastri's just been ultra consistent and also just seems to really have a good idea of like not to wring this car's neck too much. I think Piastri's style really works well at the moment, especially towards the end of the year, like towards the end of the regulations, because Piastri doesn't overdrive really. And it's been a big talking point of these regulations that it's possible to overdrive the cars. Like if you try and do too much with it, I think Hamilton's learning this a bit about the Ferrari as well, certainly the Mercedes of the last couple of years. If you try and do too much with it, you're going to lose time. And I think Piastri's style just works really, really well to be really smooth and really fast. And he therefore always qualifies well. Whereas Lando has, that he has an occasional Q2 exit, or he has an occasional top 10 in Jeddah because he crashed it into the wall. Piastri doesn't really do that. So, look, as I said yesterday in the video, if Piastri's going to win the championship, that's going to be the reason why. But for Lando, 2 tenths off your teammate starting seconds, that's perfectly acceptable. P3, P4 was a big debate. And let me just get to a couple of these super chats. Giz' squad with the 5 best F1 YouTube channel. Nico's right. Lando and Oscar are scared of a turn 1 Max overtake. We'll get into that. We'll talk about turn 1 and Max and what he might do. Maybe even Russell. Like, worth keeping an eye on George from P4 because you guys have seen the thumbnail. That is last year's start. George came from P4 last year. Who do I think will come out of turn 1 in first place? 50 knock from Jesper. Like, if I had to guess, you know what? Let's do a poll right now. We got half an hour to go until the Grand Prix. Let's do a poll. Who leads out of turn 1? Is it going to be the pole man, Piastri? Is it going to be second place man, Lando? Is it going to be Verstappen? And I guess I'll have to put Russell in there as well. I don't think it's going to be Hamilton, Hadjar, anyone like that. That is the poll for the time being. I'll see what you guys say. If I had to give a take, I'm not going to say anything because it might influence the results to some degree. I'll let you guys decide for a time being. Verstappen and Russell, identical times again. I think, look, would you prefer to be 3rd or 4th? You'd prefer to be 3rd, but 4th is not a bad starting position either, as Russell showed last year as well. Identical times is, Russell wasn't very happy about it, and Verstappen was 3 tenths off pole, again, rigging the neck of the car. I think Hamilton had a pretty good qualifying. It was a strange one for Ferrari, really, because Leclerc went out and did his lap time a little bit earlier on his only set of softs that he decided to use. So Charles has saved a whole set of soft tyres for the race with the intention that this is going to be a 2-stop race. Now, I hope it's a 2-stop race. I really do. And I think that it will be. I'm hopeful that it will be. But we'll see. I don't know. It's going to be hot. It's hot. They're not going to use the hard tyre, probably. The hard tyre was practically useless in the practice runs they did. It just doesn't generate any, the C1 tyre, right? It just doesn't generate any grip, and they were just really, really struggling with it. So, to get any balance. So I think the teams have effectively decided that they're going to ignore the hard, and they're just going to use medium and soft, which is why Leclerc saved a set. Hamilton, though, definitely getting a bit more comfortable in the car. It's just a tough world where Hamilton was happy with his lap, he was happy with the car. They put in a good lap time, both Leclerc and Hamilton, and it seems, Hamilton even turned up to the weekend and said that he has been, every weekend he has to do something new. Like, he has to adapt his driving style to the car. Every weekend it's a new challenge. Every weekend there's something different that he's got to learn, and it's frustrating that he can't drive the car how he wants to, but that's simply how these regulations are and simply how this Ferrari is. But even then, having done a great job that he was happy with, he was still half a second off pole, right? Like, that's where Ferrari are. But P5 is not the end of the world, because Ferrari's long run pace was very good. Like, it was really good on the Friday. And it's tough to say what that's going to look like today, but I think that there is a chance that Mercedes go backwards and Ferrari go forwards. I don't really see Piastri, Norris, Verstappen not being top 3. Like, unless there's a crash at turn 1. Or some sort of crash at turn 4, maybe, who knows. But I think that the top 3 in quali are very likely going to be the top 3 in the race. It's difficult to imagine otherwise unless there's some sort of an incident. But I think it's possible that Ferrari could have really good race pace and move through. I think Verstappen's was also, like, his long runs were also very good as well. And McLaren's were strong, but there was a stint that Piastri did on the mediums where his degradation was actually really strong. Like, bad, as in, like, his degradation was horrific compared to Max. So, I don't know, like, this is what I was talking about 30 minutes ago, is that, in my opinion, the McLaren we will see whether this technical directive has done anything more in the race than in qualifying. Like, that's when we're going to see whether McLaren struggle a bit more with the degradation than they would otherwise, because they've got to compromise on the balance due to the wing not being so flexible. My one kind of concern of that not being true is that yesterday in qualifying, again, like, you know what, let me find the number of this corner, because in the video yesterday I didn't find the number of the corner, so I'm going to find it. Spain Grand Prix track. And just bring out what this looks like here. I think it's technically turn 12, is it? Yeah, technically turn 12. What I was trying to say in yesterday's video was that this track here, this corner, there you go. You guys can just about see it on the screen probably. Actually, you can't. There you go, now you can. Well, I was talking about turn 12, right? This turn 12, leading into the final two corners, that is such a tricky corner. Like, it's cambered in a funny way. You never know when you can get on the power. But the McLarens were mighty through there. Like, again, the final sector, the Ferrari's rear was giving out, the Red Bull's rear is giving out, the McLaren's rear was stable as a rock through turn 12. And that's kind of why I'm thinking maybe it's not going to make all that much difference after all, this technical directive thing. But look, what do I know, right? I'm just guessing on the internet. So, you know, you guys can give your perspective in the comments. But yeah, maybe McLaren dominate. I did see a stat. I think it was Coulthard and maybe Hakkinen who led here. I think it was 1998. They were P1, P2 the last time McLaren had a front row lockout in Barcelona, and they won by like 48 seconds, right? Like, it wasn't close. So yeah, left front dies there. Yeah, I mean, like, it's tricky corners around this track. But that's your top 10. Hadjar ended up P9. Lawson down in P13, not ideal. Gasly was P8, pretty solid from him, all things considered. Antonelli in P6, you know, he was a couple of tenths off Russell, but not the end of the world, just ahead of Leclerc. Do we think that Leclerc's decision is going to pay off? So I've got a tweet here from Leclerc. It's not a tweet, obviously. It's a comment that he made after qualifying. He says, "I did this choice." So it was an interesting choice from Charles. He chose, and it seems like Charles has decided now that it is about time that he also becomes the strategist for Ferrari. And maybe he's right to think that. But Charles says, "I did all of these tyre choices to have better tyres for tomorrow's race. If tomorrow we have a very bad race, then I want to take the responsibility for a bad weekend. If it goes well, I'm happy to take the credit." Because this is the idea on what the strategies might be. And these are, according to Pirelli, whether you believe them or not, the strategies that are going to be employed. So, according to Pirelli today, and I don't believe Pirelli, but according to Pirelli, it's going to be a two-stop for sure. Now, I think the chances of this are pretty good, but I just, do Pirelli just make stuff up? Or am I, you know what I mean? Like, do they actually just make things up? Because is anyone going soft, medium, hard to the end? There's just no way. Why would you do that? You'd go soft, medium, medium. Like, I don't know. And who's going medium, hard, soft? Like, there's just no way. I swear we're just making things up. But I don't know. Maybe I'm massively wrong on this. But like, if you're going to use the hard, you're going to try a one-stop. There's just no, like, that's how it's going to be. Because the hard seems durable enough, but it seems just awful in terms of grip. So, but it's like, if you're going to, I don't know, if you're going to put the hard tyre on this graphic, at least give it a one-stop. Nobody has two new mediums. Do they not? Does Charles not have? Maybe he has two new soft and one set of mediums. Yeah, apart from Leclerc. That's what I thought. Yeah. So that's exactly right. Nobody has two new mediums, which is true. So maybe they, I don't know, maybe they do throw the hard tyre in. Maybe it's possible. I think it's more likely, though, they would try and use, you know, a set of scrubbed mediums and then a set of new mediums. I think Leclerc's played it pretty well with his tyre allocation. We'll see. Somebody's probably going to try a one-stop because you might as well, right? And they're probably going to use the hard. I would just be surprised if we've got teams using the hard in a two-stop. It's certainly not going to be the quickest way to do it. I think that's the conclusion, really. Piers Johnson, you'll just yap it in here. You don't even know what you're talking about. I think no one in Formula 1 really knows what they're talking about. We're just guessing at this point. But that's the fun of F1. Like, I think everyone who's watched an F1 race knows that there's nothing in sports like lights out at the start of a Grand Prix, because you've got 50 odd laps ahead of you. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, that's the beauty of F1, is that, you know, when the lights go out, you know that something's big is about to happen in the next few moments, but you just don't know what it is. And yeah, that's I think the best bit about F1. There's multiple good things about F1. But look, what I do probably agree with is that this strategy at the top here, this two-stopper, soft, medium, soft, is a very viable strategy. I think that's what a lot of the teams will be going for here. They need to mandate using all compounds. Look, I agree, Andy. That would be I've said it before, like if I had to change one rule in F1, that's what I would change. Maybe I would also change the red flag rule. I think it's kind of stupid. You can just change size for free under a red flag. It's my opinion. But yeah, that would be my perspective, is that you have to use all the compounds at least at some point. It would make the races more interesting, but I know that people would disagree on that. So yeah, Barcelona possible race strategies. This is what it looks like. Are the McLarens going to tussle? That's the big question. What's going to happen into turn one? Because Max talked about it, Rosberg talked about it, and Max even said this yesterday, it's time to shine into turn one. Why don't we go 3 wide for the cameras, I think is what he said yesterday as well. And look, with that in mind, what do we think? Is Max going to take the lead into turn one? I mean, I've got the picture on the thumbnail of the last year's turn one. Russell goes around the outside. Like, Lando kind of bottled it last year off the line. He didn't get a great launch. Max was up the inside. And we know that Max from seconds is a scary beast around Spain. I mean, he's done it from second before, just barging his way down the inside. And there's not much you can do. But from thirds, potentially could be a different story. I see. Is this Nico Rosberg here doing the grid work? Yeah, he is. What do you think about Nico's commentary, by the way? Because I love having Nico on comms. I think he's hilarious. He just says it how it is all the time. Like, he says it from his perspective, whether he's right or wrong. Because I think Nico is obviously very biased in many of his perspectives. Oh, I need to end this poll actually real quick. So you guys had, leading out of turn one when it loads, 53% Piastri, 25% Verstappen, 12% Norris, 7% Russell. So, yeah, look, I think this is probably fair. I can picture it in my head, right? Piastri starts off strong. He cuts over to the right-hand side to cut off Lando. Lando moves to the left. Verstappen then locks into the slipstream on Piastri, tries to find room around the inside. I think Lando's just got to be aggressive, right? Like, what I don't want to see is Piastri come to the inside and cut off Lando. Lando moves to the outside. Max slipstreams and then does the same as Russell did last year, because it's a very wide run into turn one. You can fit a lot of cars there. You can do a lot. So I'm a little bit fearful that Lando's going to get a little bit nervous and is going to back out of it, and he just can't allow it to happen again, right? Lando has to be aggressive today. He has to be aggressive today. I'm hoping that if we don't get a Max fight, which I think we possibly will, but if we don't, I'm really hoping that today we get a tussle between the two McLarens, because today it could get spicy. I'm not expecting Lewis Nico 2016, right? I'm not expecting that. But I am expecting something to happen between the two McLaren guys at some point. Look, at the end of the day, those two don't hate each other like Lewis and Nico hated each other that year. Like, it's not the same. The relationship, the rivalry is not quite the same, but it's still a strong rivalry, and I think it will prove to continue to be the way. But it's just this season we've not really seen those two properly go at it for the win. I mean, we kind of got a bit of it in Australia, and then it kind of all fell apart. So yeah, I'm just not sure. I know that there was like this type of tweet here. Land Oscar, people use these stupid things. They're too woke to recreate this, but of course, this is the famous incident of a couple of years ago covering the inside. I mean, like, you think Lando, I know there was some talk about this, like, you think Lando's going for this gap? Maybe Lando's not going for that gap, right? But, the opportunity was there. Oh, we've got Rob Marshall here on the grid walk. Of course, he's been one of the key characters behind what has been seen over the last couple of years at McLaren. But it looks hot there. It looks hot there in Barcelona today. I don't think George Russell's got to worry too much about the rain coming in. I know there's been a bit of talk about this because obviously when this happened back in 2016, the two Mercedes collide out of the Grand Prix. People still question whose fault it was or whatever. Toto Wolff obviously wasn't very happy when they got back to the factory, and the side pods of those cars are still on display at the Mercedes factory as like a sign to say, look, there's 1,000 people here working on this car week in, week out. Like, you do not cost it for the rest of them type thing. But of course, that Grand Prix famously, Max Verstappen won. 18-year-old kind of, prodigy won the Grand Prix. So I know that there's some people have said, oh, maybe the two McLarens, they collide, and then we get Antonelli winning the race. Well, I don't think it's so true. In my opinion, I think it's more Rosberg's fault personally, but Nicky Lauda thought it was Hamilton's fault. Whatever, I don't know. Intrigued to your thoughts in the comments, but that is basically a decade ago now, so I think that's probably been decided for some time, or, people have talked about this incident to death, to be fair, but there are plenty of other incidents that season that I think also deserve a lot of credit. So, yeah, this is your starting grid. Well, this is actually the old starting grid. There have been a couple of changes to this, as we know, because Stroll is not going to start the race. So he's going to be out at 28 degrees out there, a little cloudy. Okay, maybe it's not as hot then as it could be. The track temperature, though, will be hot. I'm down for a hot track because it means that degradation is more important and therefore it's more likely a two-stop. Although, to be fair, I also don't mind a race where there's a mix of a two-stop and a one-stop. Of course, you guys, I'm sure, remember Spa last year, where Russell won before then not winning, getting disqualified, and Hamilton won. But that was largely because he, of course, was on the one-stop and Hamilton was on the two-stop, and his car maybe was a little bit lighter than it should have been. Not maybe, it was actually guaranteed. Your bias, it was 100% on Lewis. I mean, I don't know. It's like, I've watched the incident back a couple of times. I think they were both at fault to some degree, personally. But love how Nico keeps saying the car's terrible. Yeah, Nico was giving his thoughts a lot on that on the first day about how, the SF25 was stemming out of the rear. I will say, and also Yuki's from the pit lane, yes. Yuki's starting from the pit lane. Stroll is not starting. If you guys are just joining and haven't seen the news on Stroll, I do say intrigued, by the way, Jared as well. Yeah. So, I'm not changing the intro anytime soon, basically. So, if you guys haven't seen the news, Stroll is not going to be racing today, and they won't even have a car in the fight, Aston Martin, apart from Alonso, because Stroll has injured his wrist again, it seems. That's at least the talking point. Bro, where are you from? I'm actually from the same hometown as Adrian Newey. That's like my small claim to fame. But no, I'm from Colchester in Essex. Even though I don't really sound like it. But, all good. All good. Both McLaren drivers should cover Max onto turn one, focus on their own race. I think this is a good point. I mean, we've seen this happen before. If you guys want to talk about, let's say, Monza 2024, when Oscar goes around the outside of Lando, compromises Lando, and Leclerc gets into second place and eventually wins the race. Not saying that's going to happen here, but it is a talking point that if you're McLaren, your real goal is just to maintain the 1-2. But then again, I mean, it is. That's what the team will be telling them, right? That's what the team will be telling them, is that, guys, let's just keep the 1-2 out of turn one. But at the end of the day, I think both the McLaren guys know the constructors this year, let me try that again. The constructors this year is not a fight, right? It's over. It's over. Congratulations. Well done, McLaren. You've done it again. 2 in a row. You're the world champions in the constructors. So if I'm Piastri or Lando, look, if I'm Lando and I have the option to put a move on Piastri that compromises his run and potentially makes him vulnerable to Max, am I going to do it? Hell yeah, I'm going to do it, right? I'm fighting for a world championship here. So, and then be confident in myself that I can hold the lead out front against Max. I don't know. You know what? I'm also going to give you guys a little poll as well. Thoughts on Barcelona track. Track/race. S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier. Let's just try that. Because you guys know my thoughts on this track. I love this track. I think it's beautiful. There's some parts of it I'm not so happy with, but the whole sequence, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, is brilliant. You can get great racing through there. Overtaking opportunities into turn 1, you could potentially fight it back into turn 4. The middle part of the track is nice, it's fine. And then the final 2 corners now they've, I will admit, I was never a fan of that stupid chicane. It was a stupid chicane. But they've finally got rid of the chicane now. And it means that you can have to run off 12, off 13, off 14 onto the straight. I don't know. I like it. I like it. I look forward to this race every year. I always think it's great. Certainly qualifying is always good fun. Yeah, definitely better than Madrid, not going to lie. Maybe I should have said A+ or something. Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, look, is it S tier? Is it Silverstone? Is it Interlagos? You know, is it Spa? No, there can only be a couple of S tier circuits. There only can be a handful of S tier circuits. But I think it's not far behind. I don't want it to go. There was also a rumor that it's going to be on the calendar again next year anyway. That they, even whether Madrid happens or not, then it's going to happen. There should be DRS up to turn 4. I don't know if there's enough room. Possibly, though. Maybe there's enough room, because you could probably activate it at the end of the straight. Only be a little bit. But then again, Monaco's DRS isn't exactly very long, is it? I know that last year there were some logistical issues here. But I don't know. It's a real... Yeah, Suzuka, of course, I didn't mention either. It's a real test of a car, this circuit. And that's what I think, I like about it. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, predictions for the Grand Prix. I know you guys earlier predicted who's going to be leading into turn 1. I would love to see a world where we get some sort of action into turn 1. We get maybe a, Verstappen, Piastri collision or something. Russell could... I mean, look, are we going to see a classic Russell does nothing and gets third? Possibly. But I don't know if maybe the days of that are slightly over. But yeah, intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. We've got about 10 minutes until lights out. I'm probably going to head off and make a cup of tea before this Grand Prix is about to start in a couple of minutes. But it's been a pleasure joining you all today. Appreciate my voice is a little bit frazzled right now, but I'll be back for you guys after the Grand Prix with a video. I will at some point be doing watch parties for the thing. As I said at the start of the show, if you guys didn't hear, 2 weekends time today, I should be in Montreal for the Grand Prix. Well, I will be in Montreal. I'm assuming I'm going to be at the Grand Prix, but there's a couple of details I've still got to figure out of that one. But the hope is that I can run a watch party or pre-show / watch party or something from the race, which would be really exciting with any luck. But yeah, I'm going to go and enjoy the race. Hadjar P4, safety car. Russell will do nothing and get 4th. Alonso sends it around the outside and wins. Tough for, Alonso put in a good lap, but he still ended up 10th. That was kind of unfortunate. Yeah, so Stroll took the chance from Drukovic. Yeah, maybe in Montreal it's going to be a little bit different. But yeah, pleasure to speak with you all today. I'll be back for the video recap and everything that's about to happen over the couple of hours to follow in a couple of hours' time. And I will see you all very shortly indeed. And with any luck for the next Grand Prix, we'll be able to do these watch parties / pre-shows on probably my laptop, but actually from the circuit itself with any luck. So yeah, take care everyone, and I'll see you all soon. Enjoy the Grand Prix.